In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the coolant overflow tank on this Chevy Silverado 2500. Let's install this TRQ tank. To get the overflow tank out, there is actually a bolt that is wedged right in between here, and sure, you could pry this apart a little bit and use a swivel socket, but I just find it easier to remove the air box. To do that, I'm going to unplug the mass airflow sensor, and then there's another sensor down here. Unplug that as well. I'm going to put the wiring harness up and over here, that way it doesn't fall down there. There's an 8mm clamp here. I'm going to loosen it up. This will allow me to remove the intake ducting here, the snorkel. Pull this off, set it aside, and now we should be able to lift this piece up and out by prying it upwards. Be careful of your mass airflow sensor, of course. There we go. It's just sitting on some rubber grommets. Pull this up and out of the way. There are two 10mm fasteners holding this coolant overflow tank on. There's a bolt here and a mounting nut diagonal on the other side. That one's a little more difficult to see, but not impossible to reach with an extension. Put a 10mm socket on this and remove it. Get that out of there. And then the mounting nut on the back here. All right. This top hose, even if your cooling system is full, should not have much coolant at all going through it. So take the clamp off, pull it to the side here. You can give the hose a little twist just to break it free. Sometimes it gets stuck on the plastic there. Pull it off of the reservoir. For the bottom, however, this will be full of coolant if your cooling system is still full. So what I'm going to do here is take some pliers that are meant to pinch down on hoses, so it won't damage the hose, but it will restrict the flow of coolant. And I'm going to squish this hose down, and this will allow me to remove the hose without losing too much coolant here. Now, yes, the reservoir would be full, but I'm just going to plug it with my hand once the hose is off, and that should hold pretty much all of the coolant in here. So grab your pliers and squeeze the clamp, pull it off. So now what I'm going to do is pull the hose off. I'm going to tilt this overflow tank up like that. That is going to prevent it from leaking out of here. Pop the hose off. There we go. This should not have any coolant leaking out of it. If it does, just try to hold it up like this. Hold this up, and there it is. There's your old coolant overflow. Recycle all of the coolant that's in this properly, and then let's get the new one. This new one is obviously empty, so I'm going to slide it down into position and line it up with this hose. This is the first thing I'm going to connect. That way I can remove my pliers off of it. Before I do that, I will bring the clamp back on here. And I'm going to try to line it up with exactly where it came from. Just like this. Perfect. Now, this is a locking clamp, so it sometimes gets locked in the open position. If it does, stick a screwdriver in here, pry the two ends apart, and it should pop open. Because I have the hose connected now, I'm ready to release this clamp here and make sure that the hose is not damaged, which it shouldn't be if you use the right equipment. This is fine. So let's get the overflow tank lined up with the two mounting areas and put the bolt and the mounting nut on. I'm going to start with the mounting nut, thread it on. Once it threads on, get that bolt started. And the bolt starts on just fine. Once everything's lined up, tighten these up. Don't over tighten it because it is holding down on plastic. You don't want to crack the plastic, so just make it snug. And that applies to both ends, of course. And now the only thing we have left to do to reconnect everything here is to put back the upper hose. So let's get this upper hose reconnected, slide it on all the way, and then of course put the clamp back on. Just like that. Perfect. this is secured in place. It is ready to be filled, but of course, before we fill it, let's put the airbox back in. Let's get the airbox resituated here. It's got 2 pins on the bottom that slide onto rubber bushings. I'm just going to try to line those up, and then on this side it should be pressed up against the fender. Once that's reseated on its little grommets there, let's get the intake back on. There we go. Pop it over, and once it's seated, tighten up this clamp with an 8mm socket. And with these clamps, all you want to do is just get them snug. You don't want to over tighten them. Not only can that strip out the clamp, but you don't want to break the plastic here. All right, just make it snug. Obviously, as long as it doesn't move independently, it is tight enough. Bring the wiring harness back over and reconnect the 2 connectors. This one down here. Make sure they both click when you reconnect them. And of course, the mass airflow sensor. That was a very silent click on both of them, but I felt it. Everything's good to go. Now let's fill up the cooling system. Remove your coolant reservoir cap. And let's fill it up with the manufacturer specified coolant. As you can see, the coolant is pretty much at the full line for me. So at this point, now that I've ran my engine and I know that it is bled, I'm going to cap it off, tighten this up all the way, and once it bottoms out, give it a quick snug, and you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.